Shopify's point-of-sale system helps you sell at every stage of your business. Need a fast and secure way to take payments in person? We've got you covered. How about card readers you can rely on anywhere you sell?
Thanks. Have a good one.
Yep, that too. Want one place to manage all your online and in-person sales? That's kind of our thing. Wherever you sell, businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 a month trial at shopify.com/listen. Shopify.com/listen.
The year, 1593. The place, Nong Sarai, in what is today modern Thailand. The event, the last known elephant duel in history. Two noblemen, armed to the teeth, riding pachyderms, and doing their utmost to kill the elephant rider across from them. By the late 16th century in Southeast Asia, the elephant duel was a centuries-old tradition. A battle of champions, which, if legend is to be believed, could stand in for full-scale pitched battles between armies and could save thousands of lives. A commander on elephant back would represent his entire force, with the agreement being that the army of the losing rider would honorably accept the loss and retreat. But the duel of 1593, the supposed last duel, was a little messy. The context for this last duel was the Battle of Nong Sarai, a showdown between two of the most formidable armies in 16th century Southeast Asia. The larger force had come from Burma and was led by Crown Prince Min Ki-zwa of the country's Tuangoo Dynasty. The opposing army was led by Naresuan, a man formerly known as the Black Prince, but now sporting the title King of Ayutthaya. Ayutthaya was a prosperous Thai-speaking city which at one time had been the capital of a sizable Southeast Asian empire. But as the Burmese kingdom started aggressively expanding its empire in the 1500s, Ayutthaya soon found itself paying tribute to its more powerful neighbor. The Thai kingdom made several attempts to reassert its independence. But in 1569, an overwhelming Burmese force seized the capital of Ayutthaya, placing a hand-picked puppet king on the throne and formally reducing the kingdom to a vassal state. As part of the surrender of Ayutthaya, the king's two sons were sent to the Burmese capital to act as royal hostages, to hopefully ensure the loyalty of the new Thai king. These two Thai princes were Naresuan and his brother Ikathotsoro, nicknamed the Black Prince and the White Prince, respectively. Naresuan apparently had a darker complexion than his fairer brother, hence the name. The two royal captives lived alongside the Tuangoo nobility at court and received an appropriately princely education. This included Burmese military training, which at the time was recognized as the best in Southeast Asia. After 6 years in Burma, the princes returned home, but clearly never got fully comfortable with their role as vassals. After nearly 20 years of Burmese dominance, things began to change in the region. The grip of the Tuangoo Dynasty was starting to slip, and the time had come for the Thai kingdom to once again reassert its independence. Since his return home, the Black Prince, Naresuan, had steadily gained a reputation as a formidable military commander. He had built a loyal force that, while relatively small when compared to the Burmese army, could credibly give the Tuangoo Dynasty a run for its money. So, in 1583, Naresuan, with the blessing of his father the king, formally declared that Ayutthaya would no longer be paying tribute to Burma. The Thai-speaking kingdom was now in open rebellion, and so began a bloody 9-year war. In those years, the Burmese made 6 attempts to invade the country and crush Naresuan's rebellion. none of these campaigns proved decisive. Along the way, Naresuan's father died, making the Black Prince, who had been the de facto ruler of the country, the official king. So it was in late 1592 that the Tuangoo Dynasty made one last attempt to reassert their dominance over the rebellious Thais. To do this, they put together a truly massive force. Now, all numbers from this period are disputed, but some sources estimate that the invading army may have had as many as 250,000 soldiers. What's more, the army was commanded by the Tuangoo Crown Prince, a young man that Naresuan would have grown up with at the Burmese court. This time, it was personal. King Naresuan chose to meet this invading army at Nong Sarai, some 85 kilometers outside of the capital. While the Burmese had the numerical advantage, both armies were formidable. They were both outfitted with newly acquired European gunpowder weapons, and both forces commanded impressive herds of war elephants. Now, what happened next? Well, that is the source of some serious historical debate. One of the most colorful retellings of this event can be found in the book Lords of Life, A History of the Kings of Thailand, written in 1960. The description found in that book draws largely from a 16th century Thai source known as the Royal Chronicle, but it's also spiced up with a few fun details from other Thai sources. This account is a good reflection of how this battle has been popularly remembered in Thailand. We are told that when the two armies joined in battle, Naresuan and his brother were both riding huge war elephants. But the animals were in musth. That's a type of elephant heat that's part of the natural elephant breeding cycle. Bull elephants will periodically go into musth when they're looking to breed, which makes them more aggressive, unpredictable, and harder to control. In the heat of battle, these aggravated elephants surprised their riders by suddenly charging deep into the Burmese lines, kicking up huge amounts of dry season dust as they went. When the dust settled, Naresuan discovered that he was within shouting distance of the Burmese Crown Prince, his old chum from his days as a royal hostage. The Crown Prince was observing the battle from atop his own formidable war elephant in the shade of a large tree. So Naresuan shouted out, quote, "Elder brother, why do you sit under that tree? Drive your elephant out and let us join in single combat, as we used to do in practice as students. Let it be a sight for our troops to see, so that it will be known that brave deeds have not yet deserted princes, nor have they lost their skill, and they can still perform the noble art of single combat on elephants." End quote. Ooh, you gotta love that. The challenge was accepted. The Crown Prince came forward on his elephant mount, and the two combatants squared up for a duel. A classic elephant duel played out much like a European joust. The elephants would charge at one another, and the goal would be for one of the elephants to hook its opponent with its tusk and throw it off balance, leaving the rider vulnerable to either be stabbed or unseated. We're told that on the first charge, the Burmese elephant got the better of his Thai opponent. Naresuan was exposed. The Crown Prince swung his sword staff, but only managed to slice off a piece from the brim of Naresuan's hat. Recouping, the elephants squared up and charged again. This time, Naresuan's elephant managed to hook the Burmese animal with his tusks. The Crown Prince was vulnerable, and so Naresuan attacked with his blade and, quote, "The hapless Crown Prince was cut in half from his shoulder to his waist," end quote. In the fray, Naresuan's trusty elephant driver was hit by a bullet and killed, but the king had already struck the fatal blow. As news of the crown prince's death spread through the battlefield, the Burmese army was thrown into disarray. The emboldened Thais bore down on their disheartened enemy and soon forced their retreat. With that fateful elephant charge, Naresuan had not only won the battle, he had freed his country from foreign domination. The great revival of the Ayutthaya Empire was now ahead. Or so goes the tale. The elephant duel at Nong Sarai has been remembered as one of the most pivotal moments in Thai history. The dramatic instant when King Naresuan bested the Burmese crown prince has been commemorated with statues, murals, royally commissioned works of art, and postage stamps. Naresuan's victory in the duel has come to stand in as a metaphor for Thailand's independent spirit. There's a deep pride in Thailand that the country was one of the few nations in Asia to never be colonized by a Western power. The elephant duel represents a moment when Thai bravery overcame foreign oppression, and as such, it has become a deeply symbolic event. But did this elephant duel even take place? There are at least 10 different accounts of the Battle of Nong Sarai, written by Thai, Burmese, Dutch, Persian, and Portuguese authors. These sources give wildly different accounts of what actually went down that day. Which of these sources should we trust? Was Naresuan's last duel just an elephant-sized historical myth? Let's see what we can find out today on Our Fake History. Episode number 238, What Was the Last Elephant Duel? Hello and welcome to Our Fake History. My name is Sebastian Major, and this is the podcast where we explore historical myths and try to determine what's fact, what's fiction, and what is such a good story it simply must be told. Before we get going this week, I just want to remind everyone listening that you can hear this show without ads by supporting at $5 or more every month on Patreon. Patrons also get access to a ton of exclusive episodes. And speaking of exclusive episodes, voting is now open on the topic for the next patrons-only extra. The finalists are The Seven Wonders of the Ancient World, The Viking Presence in North America, The Red Baron, China's mythic Journey to the West, and The Lost Colony of Roanoke. If you are a patron, you can go and vote for whichever topic you believe is the most deserving. I will be honor-bound to create an extra episode on whichever topic gets the most votes. Patrons at all levels can vote and will get access to the episode once it's finished. So, if you want to be part of the Our Fake History democracy, then join up at patreon.com/OurFakeHistory. Also, I want to remind everyone that we are going to Greece in 2026. If you want to join me and other Our Fake History fans on a trip of a lifetime in September of 2026, head to ourfakehistory.com and follow the links to the itinerary, or go to johnshorestravel.com and look for the upcoming trips. It's going to be an incredible experience. We are still looking to fill some spots, so if you are interested, don't wait. Get yourself signed up, and don't forget to use promo code OFH when you book. This week, for the first time on Our Fake History, we are turning our attention to Southeast Asia. This part of the planet has long been neglected by this podcast, and it is time to change that. While the history of the Philippines has come up a few times on this show, I've not yet had the opportunity to explore the history of mainland Southeast Asia. And that's a shame, because as I've been learning, the history of the region that now contains the modern nations of Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Malaysia, and Vietnam is fascinating. But this week, I want to focus on a historical event that is particularly important to the people of Thailand. This is the Battle of Nong Sarai, in the alleged elephant duel between King Naresuan and the Burmese Crown Prince Min Kee Zwa. As I mentioned in the introduction, the battle, which took place in 1593, has become one of the most celebrated military encounters in Thai history. Naresuan's victory effectively freed the proto-Thai state of Ayutthaya from a period of vassalage to the Burmese Tuangoo Dynasty. After reclaiming the independence of his kingdom, Naresuan began aggressively expanding its borders, inaugurating a new period of regional dominance for Ayutthaya that would last into the 1700s. It's been argued that without the victories of Naresuan, there may not be a modern Thailand. As such, Naresuan has been adopted as one of Thailand's national heroes, and the elephant duel at Nong Sarai is celebrated as his signature heroic achievement. In fact, it's hard to exaggerate just how iconic Naresuan and his elephant duel are in Thailand. It's been guessed that the elephant duel at Nong Sarai has been reproduced in art and statuary more than any other scene from Thai history. In 1887, the King of Siam, as Thailand was then known, commissioned a series of paintings depicting scenes from the royal chronicles. This was done to celebrate the history of the nation. Of the 92 pieces that were completed, the elephant duel at Nong Sarai easily received the most popular attention. Copyists reproduced the painting, and soon miniatures of the scene were widely available. That painting then inspired everything from large pieces of public art to postage stamps. Over the last few decades, Naresuan's stature in the Thai historical imagination seems to have only grown. There was a 6-part Thai-language film series depicting the life and adventures of Naresuan that was released between 2007 and 2015. In 2017, it was then adapted for Thai television as The Legend of King Naresuan, the series. In 2010, a massive multiplayer online role-playing game called King Naresuan Online was launched. This game used aspects of Naresuan's life story in its gameplay. Even Naresuan's elephant has become a historical celebrity in Thailand. In 2006, an animated children's movie was released, which chronicled the adventures of the baby elephant before he became Naresuan's trusted war mount. In the Thai historical imagination, Naresuan is something like George Washington on elephant back, an independence fighter and a nation builder who could not tell a lie. Now, you can find figures like this from every corner of the planet, and this podcast has made hours worth of audio poking holes in the mythology of these various national heroes. But in the case of Thailand, this might be a slightly more difficult proposition. You see, Thailand has been a constitutional monarchy since 1932, but that constitution preserves an elevated level of reverence for the Thai king and the royal family. This eventually evolved into what are known as the country's lèse-majesté laws. These laws make it a criminal offense to insult, threaten, or in any way defame the king or any other member of the royal family. And according to a recent ruling by the Thai Supreme Court, this also extends to any deceased monarchs as well. And these laws are no joke. A successful lèse-majesté conviction can result in 15 years in Thai prison. And given the vague nature of what may or may not constitute lèse-majesté, sometimes critical or irreverent interpretations of Thai history have been seen as grounds for a criminal investigation. Now, when I embarked on this topic, I thought, surely an event from the 16th century that involves a king from an era predating not only the modern state of Thailand, but also the Kingdom of Siam, could not possibly be offensive. After all, King Naresuan came from an entirely different dynasty than that of the current Thai monarchs. Well, it turns out that I was wrong about that. In 2017, the prominent Thai writer and social activist Sulak Sivaraksa was charged with lèse-majesté due to a university lecture he gave in 2014 where he questioned the official account of King Naresuan's elephant duel with the Burmese crown prince. The charges were eventually dropped, but only after Sivaraksa petitioned the king directly. According to the Thai activist, quote, "If it weren't for His Majesty's grace, this case would not have been dropped," end quote. So, what I thought would be a somewhat lighthearted episode about elephant duels turns out to be the kind of thing that just might get you arrested in Thailand. This seems to be because the story of Naresuan is particularly important to the Thai military, who celebrate the 1593 victory at Nong Sarai with a yearly parade. All of this is to say that in Thailand, this is considered a deeply significant historical event. Questioning the truth of this elephant duel is not only scandalous, but potentially illegal. So I'm really going to need to tread lightly with this one. I should also recognize that at the time of recording, Thailand is in a period of national mourning for the late Queen Mother. So if there are any Thai listeners, I offer my condolences. My goal, as always, is not to offend or mock any nation's history. That's not my thing. At least I hope it's not my thing. I pursued this topic because I wanted to celebrate Southeast Asian history, and I hope that spirit comes across. But the truth is that there are at least 10 different accounts of what went down at Nong Sarai in 1593. Many historians who study Thai history have noted that the account of Naresuan's victory that appears in the Royal Chronicle not only conflicts with most of the other sources, but has its own internal inconsistencies. Where there is contested history, this podcast must go. Also, you expect me to stay away from a story that features an elephant duel? I mean, come on. So, let's start by getting a little background on elephant warfare in Southeast Asia, and then we'll dive into the various accounts of King Naresuan at Nong Sarai. Today's episode of Our Fake History is being brought to you by Rosetta Stone. As the seasons change, it's the perfect time to learn something new. Whether you're getting back into a routine or looking for a new challenge before the year ends, Rosetta Stone makes it easy to turn a few minutes a day into real language progress. I've been using Rosetta Stone to help improve my French, and I've been surprised by just how quickly I've been picking things up. It has really helped. With 30 years of experience, millions of users, and 25 languages to choose from, Rosetta Stone is the go-to tool for real language growth. With Rosetta Stone, you can learn anytime, anywhere. It fits your lifestyle with flexible, on-the-go learning. You can access your lessons from your desktop or mobile app, whether you have 5 minutes or an hour. Don't wait. Unlock your language learning potential now. Our Fake History listeners can grab Rosetta Stone's lifetime membership for 50% off. That's unlimited access to 25 language courses for life. Visit rosettastone.com/history to get started and claim your 50% off today. Don't miss out. Go to rosettastone.com/history and start learning today. Today's episode of Our Fake History is being brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations. Pinpointing the beginnings of Thai history can be a difficult thing to do. The best evidence demonstrates that Thai languages developed in what is today southern China sometime in the first millennium AD. Around the 11th century, Thai speakers started migrating south in large numbers, eventually settling in the territory that is now modern Thailand. By the 1100s, a number of Thai-speaking city-states had developed in the region. Now, there's some debate around which cities enjoyed prominence in the earliest times, but eventually the city of Sukhothai emerged as the dominant power in the region. Traditionally, Sukhothai has been acknowledged as the first Thai kingdom, although experts will debate that. But interestingly, elephants and elephant dueling seem to have been deeply connected to Thai culture from the earliest times. One of the most important texts we have that gives us information about the Sukhothai kingdom is the so-called Inscription of Ram Kam Hang. King Ram Kam Hang is recognized as the most significant ruler of the Sukhothai kingdom. He's credited with reforming earlier scripts to create the Thai alphabet and enshrining Theravada Buddhism as the dominant religion in the kingdom. The inscription, which was likely created around the late 1290s, acts as both a biography of the king and a description of the Sukhothai kingdom. Being that this was a piece of royal boosterism, the description of the kingdom is accordingly glowing. Sukhothai is described as large, prosperous, peaceful, and just, thanks to the enlightened leadership of Ram Kam Hang. There's also lots of talk about elephants. We're told that the king, quote, subdued many enemies who possessed broad kingdoms and many elephants, end quote. Most experts believe that this reference to many elephants was both literal and figurative. For much of recorded history, Southeast Asia was home to large herds of wild Asian elephants. By the time Sukhothai emerged as a regional power, elephants had been important domesticated animals for centuries. Captured elephants were used as pack animals, as beasts of burden, and as formidable weapons of war. Asian elephants had been used in warfare in India dating back thousands of years, but they seem to have become a key part of Southeast Asian armies around the 6th century AD. The Khmer Empire, which was based in what is today modern Cambodia, became well known for its large elephant armies between the 9th and 15th centuries. By pointing out that a king had many elephants, you were not only commenting on his military capabilities, but also his command over resources. Having many elephants meant that you had the means to feed many elephants. Elephants were such an important resource in the region that it was common for tribute payments between kingdoms to include an agreed-upon number of the best elephants. Expert Sunate Chutintaranand has explained that elephants had a myriad of military applications. He writes, quote, "Elephants were considered to be extremely useful in fighting, acting as a vanguard, protecting flanks and rear, preparing roads and campgrounds, clearing trees and shrubs, crossing rivers and breaking the current of swift rivers, strengthening the line of battle, acting as wooden castles, and supplying a lofty and mobile observation post for the king or the commander, enabling him to issue necessary orders or cheer up his army. In siege warfare, elephants with their heads sheathed in brass or steel plates served as battering rams or as rank breakers." End quote. That description helps us understand how war elephants were used throughout Asia and North Africa. But what seems to have been specific to Southeast Asia was the tradition of using elephants to fight head-to-head duels. Now, there's some evidence that elephant duels between nobles may have its roots in ancient Sri Lanka. There was a well-known story of a Sri Lankan king fighting a rival Tamil leader on elephant back in order to protect Buddhism on the island. This apparently happened sometime around the 1st century BC. Now, the exact historicity of that story is also debatable. But importantly, it was believed to be true by many Southeast Asian rulers in the medieval period. This Sri Lankan duel was the heroic model to which they all aspired. The idea was that an elephant duel could be used to settle a dispute when two opposing armies were more or less evenly matched. In Southeast Asia, these duels usually occurred after the armies had done some preliminary skirmishing and had sized each other up. If one side was obviously more powerful, you typically weren't going to get an elephant duel, as the dominant side was not going to give up its advantage. But when the outcome wasn't obvious, the king, or commanding general, could ride forward on his elephant and issue a formal challenge. Now, it was considered below the dignity of a king to fight with some rank-and-file soldier. One needed to duel with someone of roughly the same rank. Our elephant warfare expert tells us that, quote, "For the king, direct contact or engagement was possible only in stylized duels between him and the head of the opposing side, who possessed approximately equal status. It was the most honorable and cloudless way for the king to manifest his courage and prowess as the real Chakravartin." End quote. What is a Chakravartin, you ask? Well, this was a concept borrowed from ancient Indian religion. A Chakravartin was a divinely inspired ideal ruler whose sovereignty could not be contested. So, it only follows that many of the best remembered Thai kings were said to have fought elephant duels. An elephant duel was evidence that a king was a Chakravartin, a divinely inspired ruler. And sure enough, in his famous inscription, King Ram Kamheng describes his own victory in an elephant duel. He tells us that when he was 19 and still a prince, a neighboring warlord named Kun Sam Chon invaded his father's territory. At first, the invaders seemed to get the best of the Sukhothai army, until the young Thai prince rode forth on his elephant. The inscription tells us, quote, "My father's men fled in confusion. I did not flee. I mounted my elephant and broke the enemy line. I pushed him ahead in front of my father and fought an elephant duel with Khun Sam Chon. I fought Khun Sam Chon's elephant, Mas Muang by name, and beat him. Khun Sam Chong fled." End quote. The prince's victory in this elephant duel was presented as evidence that he would become a great and enlightened king. Now, sometimes this encounter is pointed to as the first elephant duel in Thai history. But the context of the inscription suggests that elephant duels had been going on for a while. The king references elephant dueling in a way that suggests that his reader was already familiar with the concept. But there's no denying that this particular elephant duel inspired future Thai rulers. If you were a Thai king looking to shore up your legitimacy, nothing said, "I am a true blue king," like winning an elephant duel. So, let's flash forward a few centuries. The Sukhothai Empire was eventually eclipsed by the rise of a rival Thai-speaking city-state known as Ayutthaya. By 1438, Sukhothai was entirely absorbed into the growing Ayutthaya Empire. In that period, Ayutthaya became one of the wealthiest and most prosperous kingdoms in Southeast Asia. Trade boomed and the military became increasingly dominant. At its height, Ayutthaya exerted influence over a swath of territory comparable to that controlled by the modern Thai state. But in the mid-1500s, the power dynamic in the region began to shift yet again. In Burma, the Tuangoo Dynasty was consolidating its power. By mid-century, they had built an impressive army and started asserting themselves more aggressively in the region. Eventually, even Ayutthaya was being shaken down for tribute by the increasingly powerful Burmese. What started as informal extortion eventually gave way to a formal conquest. Ayutthaya was besieged 3 times by the Burmese between 1547 and 1569. The city first surrendered in 1564, but within 4 years, the vassal king placed on the throne of Ayutthaya rebelled, resulting in yet another siege in 1569. After the Burmese successfully took the city for a second time, a new vassal king was placed on the throne. This was King Sanfet I, father of Naresuan, the Black Prince, the elephant rider I want to focus the rest of this episode on. Now, as I mentioned in the introduction, Naresuan and his brother were both educated in the Burmese court, where they lived as royal hostages for a number of years. Sources differ on exactly how many. This was significant because it gave the prince an opportunity to learn the Burmese approach to warfare. By 1583, the princes had been permitted to return to Ayutthaya. But not long after returning, the formerly loyal vassals rebelled. This brings us back to the Battle of Nong Sarai. After effectively declaring independence in 1584, Naresuan spent the next 9 years personally overseeing the rebuilding of the Ayutthaya army. And all our sources agree that Naresuan was a lead from the front type of commander. In those 9 years, Naresuan scored a number of key victories over the Burmese, who had attempted to squash his rebellion. Even when his forces were on the back foot and it looked like the Burmese might triumph, Naresuan had managed to keep his army together and in the field, which made them a continued nuisance to the Burmese. By 1593, Naresuan's force was as powerful as it was going to get. But the Thai army was still outnumbered by the Burmese. Significantly, the Burmese had more elephants, and apparently those elephants were much larger than the animals controlled by the Thai army. In the years when Ayutthaya was paying tribute to the Burmese, they had to send all their best elephants to the Tuangoo kings. As you can imagine, this helped contribute to the perpetuation of Burmese power. It's hard to challenge an enemy that's taken all of your best weapons of war. Apparently, the commander of the Burmese army, the Crown Prince, in 1593, sat atop the largest and most impressive war elephant on the field. An elephant that was noticeably larger than the one rode by Naresuan. But we will come back to that. So in the introduction, I related a version of the Battle of Nong Sarai that was largely drawn from a source known as the Royal Chronicle of Ayutthaya. That source was the official historical record as approved by the kings of Ayutthaya. As such, the chronicle is colored by a very specific pro-Ayutthaya perspective. So, keep that in mind as we work our way through it. In that source, we're told that as hundreds of thousands of soldiers were about to cut one another down, Naresuan spotted the Burmese crown prince and issued a formal challenge, yelling over the din of battle. Now, this official challenge was significant because this was considered appropriate protocol for an elephant duel. We're told that the crown prince accepted the challenge and the two squared off. Now, one thing I didn't mention in the introduction is that the Royal Chronicle tells us that at that same moment, King Naresuan's brother, the White Prince, issued his own challenge to one of the Burmese generals. The White Prince and this Burmese general then fought their own elephant duel at the same time as Naresuan was fighting the Crown Prince of the Burmese. The Royal Chronicle tells us that Naresuan won his duel when he fatally slashed the Crown Prince with his sword staff. But in the fray, Naresuan's elephant driver was hit and killed by an enemy bullet. Those bullets are going to become important later, so keep that in the back of your mind. The Royal Chronicle goes on to tell us that Naresuan's army capitalized on the confusion and demoralization caused by the death of the Burmese crown prince. The Thai army bore down on their enemy and killed hundreds as the Burmese did their best to retreat. Then we get a somewhat strange postscript to the story. We're told that once the battle was over, Naresuan, quote, accused 15 of his senior officers of letting him attack the Burmese crown prince alone and wished to punish them severely for waiting to see the outcome of the duel, end quote. Now, is it just me, or does that seem a little inconsistent? Well, as the historian B.J. Turwheel has argued, there are a number of things about the account of Nong Sarai found in the Royal Chronicle that are, quote, puzzling. First, it's slightly unusual that the Burmese crown prince would agree to a winner-take-all elephant duel when his army had the numerical advantage. Also, by agreeing to a duel with Naresuan, the crown prince would have been acknowledging that the king of Ayutthaya was more or less equal to him in status. That would have been quite an admission, given that at the time, Naresuan was being attacked as a rebellious vassal. But, people get a little funny when their honor is questioned. So, while this is a little strange, it's not entirely out of the question that the Burmese crown prince would have agreed to a duel. But this particular elephant duel is described as happening in the midst of a battle. The whole idea of an elephant duel in the Southeast Asian context was that it would be used to avoid the wholesale slaughter of two armies. If a formal elephant duel was going to take place, all other hostilities were supposed to stop. The Royal Chronicle, on the other hand, seems to suggest that the battle never really stopped. The fact that Naresuan's elephant driver was shot by a stray bullet seems to be evidence of this. You also have the strange situation where Naresuan's brother was fighting a duel alongside him. Now, the Royal Chronicle tells us that the White Prince, of course, won his duel as well. But what if he had lost that duel? Would that have changed the outcome of anything? What if Naresuan had lost, but his brother had won? What are the rules for a double duel? The Royal Chronicle does not tell us. Then we have the fact that the Chronicle reports that Naresuan's army attacked the retreating Burmese. That is not consistent with the typical rules for these supposedly chivalrous encounters. The elephant duel was supposed to ensure that the retreating army would not be slaughtered. In this particular case, that did not happen. And then, of course, there's that strange postscript. Naresuan berates his commanders for leaving him alone in the fight. Now, why would he do this? The whole idea of an elephant duel is that you're supposed to be engaging in single combat. That postscript seems to suggest that this was not a formal elephant duel after all. So, even if we trust the version of events reported in the Royal Chronicle, the encounter it describes was clearly not a typical Southeast Asian elephant duel. The duel did not stand in for wider hostilities. In fact, it sounds like it took place during the chaos of the melee. If Naresuan was truly dueling, he would not have then punished his commanders for not fighting alongside him. But thankfully, the Royal Chronicle is not our only source that describes the Battle of Nong Sarai. So let's take a quick break, and when we return, we'll explore some other perspectives on this pivotal moment in Thai history. Today's episode of Our Fake History is being brought to you by Indeed. Hiring isn't just about finding someone who will take the job. You need the right person with the right background who can move your business forward. If I wanted candidates who match what I'm looking for, I'd trust Indeed-sponsored jobs. Recently, I had to hire someone to help me create the videos that I've been doing for this show. To be honest, it can be hard to find someone who has exactly the right skills that you need and gets your style. Well, with Indeed, you can be incredibly specific in your job postings to make sure you get the people that actually know what they're doing and will actually be a good fit for your organization. That's what makes the difference. You get people who you are actually looking for. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results now with Indeed-sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/OurFakeHistory. Just go to Indeed.com/OurFakeHistory right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/OurFakeHistory. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Do it the right way with Indeed. Today's episode of Our Fake History is being brought to you by Shopify. People ask me all the time what it takes to start a podcast. And the short answer is passion. You really have to care about something to want to do all the work that it takes to get a podcast going. When you're starting off with something new, it seems like your to-do list just keeps growing. That list can easily begin to overrun your life. Finding the right tool that not only helps you out but simplifies everything can be a game changer. For millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the United States, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands just getting started. With Shopify, you can get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you. You can easily create email and social media campaigns wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/fake. Go to shopify.com/fake. Shopify.com/fake. Before we start looking at sources that give us a foreign perspective on the Battle of Nong Sarai, we should look at the other Thai sources. Now, these sources all agree that Naresuan killed the Burmese crown prince while both men were on elephant back. But not all of them describe the event like it was a traditional elephant duel. Most of these sources do not include the detail found in the Royal Chronicle that Naresuan shouted an official challenge to the Burmese prince. This is important because if it was going to be an official elephant duel, then you would need an official challenge. A text written in Dutch in 1640, but reflecting contemporary Thai histories at the time, tells us that the fight between the two leaders started almost accidentally because both of their elephants were in muff. In this source, we're told that the animals originally charged at each other without any goading from either rider. Apparently, the Burmese elephant was bigger and more intimidating, which originally made Naresuan's elephant flee. But we're told that the king said a Buddhist prayer which steadied his elephant and gave him the heart to charge back into the fight. At that point, Naresuan fatally stabbed his opponent. So, in this source, we still get a tale of battlefield heroics that makes Naresuan look very brave. But it does not suggest that this was a traditional elephant duel that was meant to stand in for the wider battle. This description helps resolve many of the contradictions that we find in the Royal Chronicle. The Burmese prince didn't acknowledge Naresuan's rank by agreeing to a formal duel. This encounter happened accidentally in the heat of a larger battle. This also explains why Naresuan may have felt angry with his commanders for not backing him up. His elephant put him in a very dangerous situation. It's logical that he was looking around going, "Hey, where are my guys?" This account is consistent with a later Thai source written in 1690 by court astrologers. This is known as the Luang Prasert Chronicle. Now, this source is very concerned with things that are of interest only to astrologers. We're told that the battle happened during an inauspicious time of day, which led to Naresuan's arm being injured. It also tells us that the crown prince's hat fell off at one point, which was a bad omen for his fortune in the battle. But importantly for us, this source says nothing of a formal challenge. Instead, we read that Naresuan rode out on his elephant, faced the crown prince in battle, and the prince died. And that's it. So despite lots of detail about the exact position of the sun and the condition of the crown prince's hat, we hear nothing else about the actual fight. There is very little in that source that makes the encounter sound like a chivalrous joust. The next Thai source to describe a formal elephant duel at Nong Sarai was written much, much later. This is a source known as the Ayutthaya Yazawin, which was written roughly 200 years after the actual event, sometime in the early 1770s. Now, it seems very possible that this late source was affected by centuries worth of storytelling and even Burmese perspectives on the event. Now, this text does describe a formal duel, but it contradicts the royal chronicle by saying that the Burmese army was allowed to peacefully retreat after the duel was finished. The duel in this source is a bit more clean. This source also includes all sorts of new, colorful details that don't appear in any of those earlier sources. Specifically, we're told that in the opening part of the duel, the Crown Prince of Burma dishonorably tried to fight with some kind of European firearm that he had hidden underneath his elephant goad. The goad was a large stick that was used to control the animal. Now, we're told that Naresuan noticed this, and he apparently called out the prince, saying, quote, "We are fighting a fair fight. Is my elder brother trying to gain an undue advantage?" End quote. This was enough to shame the Burmese crown prince into not using his poorly hidden gun. The authors of this late source also tell us that Naresuan went in for the death blow after his elephant pushed off from a very specific little hill with a large tree on it that's now considered a sacred site. So, this source certainly contributed to the popular understanding of the duel in Thailand. But when you consider how late it was written and how many new details it includes, it's likely not the most accurate source we have. But I want you to remember that detail of the gun disguised as an elephant goad, because that's going to pop up again. So this brings us to the non-Thai sources. And honestly, this is where things get really interesting. The Burmese account of this battle is very different from the Thai sources. The earliest Burmese version of events comes from the Tuangoo Dynasty historian Yu Kala. Now, experts of Southeast Asian history are very complimentary of Yu Kala. He was a regional pioneer in the use of primary sources like court documents, royal correspondences, and military records. He used the toolkit of the modern historian. As such, his work is considered quite reliable. Now, that does not mean we should treat his account uncritically. Yu Kala was writing a history for the Burmese dynasty. That means it's going to have a certain Burmese bias to it. But you should know that most modern experts appreciate Yu Kala's rigor as a historian. Many find him to be even-handed. So, just so you know who we're dealing with here. So, according to Yu Kala, at the Battle of Nong Sarai, there was an elephant that was in must, but it was not the one that carried Naresuan. He tells us that one of the Burmese generals rode the afflicted animal and kept it blindfolded so he would not start randomly charging when he saw the other male elephants. As the battle raged, this Burmese general noticed that Naresuan's elephant had come dangerously close to the Burmese crown prince. So, the general took the bandages off his elephant's eyes, hoping that it would charge at Naresuan. but the wild elephant veered off course, and instead of charging at the king of Ayutthaya, it attacked the Burmese prince and his elephant. This was a case of friendly fire, or at least friendly elephant gouging. Either way, this misdirected elephant immobilized the crown prince's steed. At that moment, Naresuan rushed in on his elephant and shot a European firearm at close range, mortally wounding the Burmese prince and effectively ending the battle. Now, I find this account fascinating because it includes so many of the elements that appear in the Thai sources, only just rearranged to create a completely different picture. The elephant in must, the accidental encounter, the secret gun, it's all there, just different. But we should recognize that the Burmese account agrees with the Thai sources that Naresuan killed the crown prince while they were both on elephant back. But the Burmese source makes it very clear that this was not a formal elephant duel. This was a messy encounter that happened in the heat of a wider battle. The prince was made vulnerable by one of his own elephants, and then Naresuan killed him using a gun. And as we already learned, in the context of an elephant duel, killing your opponent with a firearm was considered less honorable than slashing him with a traditional bladed weapon. So, between the Thai and the Burmese accounts, we get two very different pictures of this battle. But all of the sources we've discussed so far were undoubtedly influenced by national pride. Both the Thai and the Burmese authors have an elephant in the fight, so to speak. But thankfully, we have a handful of other sources that were written by Europeans and other Asians that can add to our understanding of this contested event. One of the earliest is from a French traveler named Jacques de Coutre, who visited Ayutthaya during the reign of King Naresuan. He arrived in the country in 1595, just a couple years after the Battle of Nong Sarai. While he was visiting, he witnessed the elaborate funeral that Naresuan held for the elephant that he had ridden during the fabled battle. De Coutre makes it clear that Naresuan believed that he owed his life to this elephant. According to this traveler, the king's grieving for this animal was both public and profound. Now, de Coutre also gives us a description of the Battle of Nong Sarai, likely gleaned from local informants in Ayutthaya. But it doesn't tell us much about the alleged duel, other than the fact that the Burmese crown prince died thanks to a, quote, lance stab to the throat, end quote. So if nothing else, de Coutre backs up the Thai assertion that Naresuan used a blade to kill his rival. But another European source contradicts that. In 1602, just 9 years after the event in question, a Jesuit priest visiting Naresuan's kingdom wrote in a letter that the Burmese crown prince had, quote, been slain with a shot, end quote, at the Battle of Nong Sarai. This account later found its way into the work of the famous English travel writer Samuel Purchas. So, what does this tell us? Well, when Europeans were traveling to Ayutthaya in the years after the Battle of Nong Sarai, they were hearing different things on the street. Some were hearing that the Burmese prince had been stabbed, others that he had been shot. Now, one of the most detailed accounts we get from a European comes from a Portuguese historian. This was a man named Antonio Bocaro, who worked as the chronicler and keeper of the archives in Goa in the early 1600s. Now, it's unclear what sources Bocaro was drawing from, but he tells us that a formal challenge was sent to the Burmese crown prince by Naresuan at the Battle of Nong Sarai. He also tells us that all of the Burmese crown prince's advisors tried to talk him out of doing the duel because he would be sacrificing their numerical advantage. But this source tells us that the crown prince was simply too proud and felt like he had to accept the challenge. From there, Baccaro goes on to describe an encounter that is clearly not a typical elephant duel. Like most of the other accounts, the two rivals are said to have clashed while a battle raged around them. But the death of the crown prince is described very differently from everything else we've discussed so far. B.J. Turwiel paraphrases the Portuguese source like this, quote, "Then came the Black Prince, Naresuan, on his elephant, clearly visible to the whole opposing army. Fighting valiantly, the Burmese crown prince wounded his opponent with an axe. When the Siamese leader, that's Naresuan, noticed that he was almost defeated, he called two Portuguese who were in his vicinity that they should fire. A shot was heard from a gun. It is believed that it came from the Portuguese, so that the Burmese crown prince was hurt and sat mortally wounded on his elephant, where the Siamese prince killed him before riding away." End quote. So, in this version, the Burmese prince was mortally wounded by some gun-toting Portuguese mercenaries, and then finished off by Naresuan. Now, annoyingly, he does not say how Naresuan ultimately killed him. It's possible that the crown prince was shot and then stabbed, which might account for the disagreement on this point in the various sources. Now, this account is interesting because, on the one hand, it supports the idea that Naresuan challenged the Burmese prince to a traditional elephant duel. But then it goes on to describe an encounter that is not at all traditional. Having some random Portuguese guy shoot your opponent before you go in for the kill, that's kind of the opposite of honorably vanquishing your foe in single combat. Now, there is one final source that I'd like to bring into our discussion here. This one comes from a Persian diplomat who visited Ayutthaya in 1685. So that means that he was writing a solid 90 years after the Battle of Nong Sarai took place. But he passes along a very fascinating piece of information that he had heard about Naresuan's famous duel. He writes that at the battle, Naresuan saw, quote, the extent of his adversary's strength and had no hope of overcoming him in an even match. So he decided to attach a firearm beneath his elephant prod. When the two combatants were close to one another and the eagle-like prince swooped down to snatch his victim from off the elephant, the governor's son, Naresuan, took aim with his goad, and before the Burmese prince knew what had happened, he fell and was dead. End quote. Whoa, that's interesting. Now, to be clear, this Persian diplomat was reporting on rumors. But it's fascinating that this account includes the detail about the gun hidden underneath the elephant goad. I told you not to forget about that elephant goad. Except this time, it was Naresuan who allegedly was wielding the hidden gun. I think this adds yet more context to that Thai source from the 1770s that mentions the hidden gun. It's possible that those authors were responding to the types of rumors that this Persian diplomat recorded. The fact that both the Persian source and the late Thai source both mentioned the very specific detail about a gun being hidden underneath an elephant prod is just too much of a coincidence not to at least point out. That Thai source from the 1770s spends an awful lot of time establishing that it was the Burmese crown prince who had a gun. It's almost as though the Thai authors were saying, hey, you may have heard that Naresuan used a gun in this battle. Not so. It was the other guy. We swear. Now, it's unclear if that later Thai source was setting the record straight or if they were adding more spin. It's worth considering both possibilities. Okay, so let's sort through all the information we've been given and see what we can put together. First, we need to recognize that every source agrees that Naresuan killed the Burmese crown prince. Every source also agrees that both leaders were on elephant back when the fatal blow was struck. So, there was definitely a fight on elephant back. But I think we can also safely say that this encounter was not a traditional Southeast Asian elephant duel. All the sources, even the Royal Chronicle, describe the fight happening while the battle was raging around the elephant riding commanders. Most of the sources describe the encounter between the leaders happening by chance after some elephants got out of control. Wider hostilities did not stop because of this fight between the leaders. And only one very late source suggests that the Burmese army was allowed to peacefully retreat after the death of the crown prince. Most of our sources describe Naresuan's army chasing down the retreating Burmese in the aftermath. The historian B.J. Turwiel has proposed the following scenario as a reasonable amalgamation of the most reliable sources. He writes, quote, Naresuan may have had difficulty controlling his elephant and strayed too far forward, suddenly arriving dangerously close to the huge elephant of the Burmese crown prince, who was flanked by other formidable enemy commanders on their elephants. Only his brother, the White Prince, came to his assistance, engaging one of the enemy's army leaders in battle. At this moment, a Burmese general who saw Naresuan coming too close to the crown prince uncovered the eyes of his elephant in Must. But this enraged animal attacked and severely wounded the crown prince's mount. Seeing the crown prince's elephant in difficulty, Naresuan quickly took advantage of the situation. He closed in, and he, or possibly one of the warriors riding with him, maybe a Portuguese man, fired a gun which mortally wounded the crown prince. End quote. I would add that it also seems plausible that Naresuan then stabbed the Burmese prince after he was shot. This might explain why multiple sources speak of a death by slashing. So, what does this all add up to? Well, it seems likely that this very real fight on elephant back was rounded up to the status of an elephant duel by historians looking to buttress the reputation of King Naresuan. Because the king came so very close to having an elephant duel, those loyal to him were happy to hand him that distinction. Remember, emerging victorious from an elephant duel was part of the resume of all the greatest kings. It demonstrated that the ruler was divinely inspired. The rough edges of what was, in all likelihood, a violent, chaotic, and messy encounter may have been sanded off by those invested in the kingship of Naresuan. By elevating this moment, it also helped punctuate the importance of the Battle of Nong Sarai in Thai history. And it was a legitimately important battle. Ayutthaya regained its independence, and over the next century, it would reestablish itself as the preeminent power in Southeast Asia. Much of this was thanks to the aggressive military campaigns of King Naresuan. After Nong Sarai, Naresuan would press his advantage and would push the borders of his empire to the greatest extent yet seen. It's not for nothing that in Thailand, the king is remembered as Naresuan the Great. Now, I feel like I should acknowledge that from a Thai perspective, what I have been doing for this whole episode could be understood as splitting hairs. Perhaps I could be accused of being needlessly pedantic about what constitutes a traditional elephant duel. Naresuan had an elephant fight. We call it an elephant duel. Why do you need to quibble with this? To be honest, I understand that perspective. But I couldn't resist because the last elephant duel is such a perfect example of how a real event can be transformed into a myth. As I've said many times on this podcast, myths don't express what did happen. They communicate what ought to have happened. The sources suggest that the fight between these two Southeast Asian leaders was characterized by weird accidents, elephant mishaps, and some less than honorable gunplay. The myth tells us how it ought to have gone. A brave hero steps forward and issues a formal challenge. It is accepted, and the two leaders clash on elephant back just like the kings of old. The crown prince is then dispatched cleanly with a traditional bladed weapon. This decides the battle, and Naresuan takes his place in history alongside all the other divinely guided victors of previous elephant duels. That's what ought to have happened, at least from the Thai perspective. So, was this the last elephant duel? Well, it depends on how much of a stickler you want to be. It was certainly the last historical event to be presented as an elephant duel in Southeast Asian history. As gunpowder weapons became more common in Southeast Asia, war elephants started to become more of a liability than a battlefield advantage. In the age of field artillery, these once dominant animals were transformed into big targets. Interestingly, this elephant duel may have been the last because of the very thing that made it less than a duel: the guns. But in the end, I don't think there's anything anyone could say, let alone a meager Canadian podcaster, that could diminish the place of Naresuan and the fabled last duel in Thai culture. The king has become the type of national hero that can't really be diminished. My only hope is that if I ever want to travel to Thailand, no one will ever take this humble little podcast in the wrong spirit. But if I can ask you all a favor, if you ever spot me at Thai customs, please don't mention the elephant in the room. Okay, that's all for this week. Join us again in 2 weeks' time when we will be exploring an all-new historical myth. As always, before we go this week, I need to give some shout-outs. Big ups to Jennifer Nation, to Michael Burt, to Megan, to Devin May, to Anna Beletsky, to Kirby, to Isabel Lindley, to Arena Weathers, to Esquilax, to Brent Beckley, to Rageaholic. Oh, that must be someone suffering from a crippling addiction to Rageahol. To Lise, to Beach Waves, and to Emirali Habibi. All of these folks have decided to pledge at $5 or more every month on Patreon, so you know what that means. They are beautiful human beings. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your support. And I just want to remind all the patrons that you can start voting on the new topic for the next extra episode. The support from the patrons is what keeps this podcast going. The fact that you folks support me every month allows me to keep making this show. I love you for it. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you're still with me after all these years. Very soon, we are going to be dropping some new designs in the TeePublic store. I know I've been promising this for a little bit. Those designs are coming, so keep on checking the store. Go to ourfakehistory.com, follow the link to TeePublic, or go to tpublic.com/stores/our-fake-history. If you had any questions about what you heard on today's show, I will be addressing them on an upcoming bonus episode. If you're a patron, please go drop your questions in the chat that is available through the Patreon website. Everyone else, you can send me an email at ourfakehistory@gmail.com. You can also find me at Facebook, facebook.com/ourfakehistory. You can find me on Instagram at ourfakehistory. You can find me on TikTok at ourfakehistory. You can find me everywhere. Blue Sky at ourfakehistory. I'm on YouTube at ourfakehistory. Just go on social media, look for Our Fake History. You will find this show. As always, the theme music for the show comes to us from Dirty Church. Check out more from Dirty Church at dirtychurch.bandcamp.com. All the other music you heard on the show today was written and recorded by me. My name is Sebastian Major, and remember, just because it didn't happen doesn't mean it isn't real.
This October, Fear is free on Pluto TV with horror movie collections from Paranormal Activity, The Ring,
You will die in 7 days.
Scream, and From Dusk Till Dawn.
This is my kind of place.
And don't miss the man-made nightmares in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein or the world-ending chaos in 28 Days Later.
Something in the blood.
All the scares, all for free. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.